Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this exciting Dr. Jaspersoft session. I see that people are starting to join, so we will give it a couple of minutes for everyone to join our webinar, and we will start. All right, so attendees keep coming up. So let's give it a couple of minutes and we will start. All right, so 1 minute more and we will be starting right up. Okay, 6:02 p.m. in my time here, so we waited 2 minutes. I see people are still joining, so they will join us later. We're gonna have to start now. So, hi everyone again. Welcome back to this exciting Dr. Jaspersoft session, which is held on Zoom webinar, which will be the way moving forward. I am Badr Draifi, your Dr. Jaspersoft here from Paris. And with me today, Casey McEwen, who's helping us running this webinar. So thank you so much, Casey. And our guest speaker here, Mehul Bamania, Senior Customer Success Architect at Jaspersoft, joining us from London to walk you through the single sign-on option on our latest Jaspersoft Web Studio 3.0. Hi, Mehul, how are you doing?
Hey, thanks, Badr. Yeah, great to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Could you please go to the next session? All right, so as you probably already know, second Thursday of every month. So please, guys, stay tuned for the next session, March 14th. We will change things a little bit this time, and we will give you the floor, coming in with your own questions any questions that you might have and you want to discuss. We're gonna send you later a link where you can send us those questions and topics for discussion. But again, you can always ask questions live during this session as well for next month. So that will be an open mic. It will be a very interactive session for next month. Thank you. So one small thing before giving the floor to Mehul, please guys put your questions on the Q&A section on the bottom of your Zoom. We will be monitoring it and we will try to get to all of your questions before the end of the session. Thank you guys, and Mehul, go ahead.
Thanks, Badr. Hey guys, welcome to this session. I will just take you through WebStudio, and obviously we'll kind of recap on WebStudio. What it is, I think there was a Dr. Jaspersoft session done previously, which kind of details in how to set up and all those kind of things. So we won't go into that session, that detail, but we'll kind of look at the authentication sides of connecting different repositories. So let's have a look at the agenda for today. Okay, so what we'll do is first we'll just kind of briefly recap what WebStudio is and how to set it up. Obviously, I won't even go through into details, but we'll just quickly recap everything. We'll quickly look at what offerings we have for WebStudio, and then we'll kind of deep dive into the repository side of things. So how to manage different repositories, including Google Drive and GitHub, and how to do the single sign-ons via those kind of Google Drive and GitHub. So we'll look at that into in actions when I do the demo. All right, so first of all, just kind of recapping what WebStudio is. It is a collection or set of tools that allow you to kind of edit Jasper report templates or Jasper Reports engine. It's editor. It's kind of collections like editors to the Jasper Reports engine. So you can actually manage different different components of Web Studio, like managing repositories or managing assets like templates or modify JRXML or design reports, those kind of things. So if you see, it's a very lightweight component, but it allows you to do all those kind of things. It is an alternative to Jaspersoft Studio, which is our most advanced desktop application for designing Jasper reports or pixel perfect reports. So I know a lot of customers have kind of started using WebStudio because it's easy to develop reports and stuff because you don't have to install separate desktop application. And it does come into a few different flavors. So it comes as a standalone application, a very lightweight Jetty-based application, but also it's embedded onto Jasper Server. It can be plugged into Jasper Server. So those are the kind of two things we have on offer. We'll just kind of look more into details what these things are. So standalone is a separate product, very lightweight, and it supports multiple repositories. So you can actually manage reports or manage your repositories based in GitHub, Google, JasperReports Server, or file-based as well. One thing that's not there is also a Jackrabbit repository you can also have, which I won't go into more details on this session, but there is a support for that as well. And on the JRS side or Jasper Server side, we don't actually allow any other repository management, only Jasper Server-based repositories, and it does not require any installation or download or installation because it's embedded onto Jasper Server. So yeah, let's move on. All right, so in terms of managing reports or managing repositories, Jasper Web Studio comes with at least 5 out-of-the-box support. And the simplest one is the JasperReports Server, which you can connect to any running JasperReports server as long as your network allows, and be able to kind of manage or design or develop reports. And you don't need Desktop Studio for that. You can just actually connect to Jasper Server, design your reports, and publish it back, and be able to run it on Jasper Server. The other option is the host file system, where if you're a single developer or and you want to just get started very quickly, this is a good option to kind of get started. It is a host file-based system repository, which you can just configure any folders that you like to be able to store your reports somewhere on your laptop or on your host system. The other two options are Google Drive and GitHub, which kind of allows you to do a single sign-on via Google or GitHub and be able to manage repositories or manage reports on those repositories. So that's something we'll look into details when I do the demo. And finally, there's also Jackrabbit support, which I won't go into detail, but the option is also available. The documentation kind of clearly states how to do those kind of Jackrabbit setup and everything. So we'll have a quick look at that as well. Okay, so let's have a look at connecting to JasperReports Server on your Web Studio. So I'm just gonna share my screen. So I have a Web Studio downloaded here. When you download Web Studio, I'm using Web Studio version 3, which is our latest version. It is quite simple. You just unzip it and you'll be able to start the server and be able to run it, get going very quickly. There is one configuration file, which is called the jrws.properties. I've taken a backup of this one. That's why it's called base, so you don't worry about this file. In this file here, if you open this file, you will see very simple configurations here. So if I just go back here, I've got this file open here, and you'll see there are some things that are commented out. And basically, all you need to do is be able to uncomment them and provide the necessary information. So, but before I do that, I just want to go back to here and yeah, so I have my server running. I'm just gonna try to log into, I'm just gonna try to launch the homepage for Web Studio. So it does run on 88 by default. So if I just go to that URL, because I have my server running already, I started already. If to start the server, there's just a startup.bat file. You just run that file and it should start the server. And by default, when you start the server, you'll have options like these. So you can see the Google Drive and the GitHub is disabled by default. We have login to JasperReports Server, which is enabled, and Jackrabbit. I'm just going to click on login to JasperReports Server, and it allows you to kind of log into JasperReports Server. So it's very easy, straightforward, nothing special here to configure. By default, everything is already enabled. So you just give your username. If you need to give your organizations, and you give your server URL. All right, so let's see. I'm just going to try to log in. So this allows you to kind of, oh, sorry, I got a SSO error. So this allows you to kind of log into JasperReports Server, get all the resources from there, and be able to modify your reports in WebStudio. So once this logs in, it does take a little bit of time because my server has a big repository. All right, so that should be done quickly. So as I said, you can see there's no configuration I've done to connect to JasperReports Server. The only thing I've done is just click on that button, which is by default enabled anyway. So just click on it, put your URL, put your username and password, and you should be able to log in. All right, there you go. So what it's done is connected to Jasper Server. It's picked up my repository from Jasper Server, and I can see all my repositories here. I can go into any folders, and I can modify the reports as I like. So if I go into my diagnostic report, which is a default report, I can just open that report, and edit it, save it. Once I save it, it will do an auto-publish back to JasperReports Server, and when I run it, my changes will be picked up. So this is a great way to just get started without even installing a desktop application. Okay, so I'm just going to log out of here. That was my only thing I needed for the JasperReports Server. Let's have a look at the next section, which is actually how to use local folder as a repository. So if I go to my studio here, if I go to my WebStudio login page again, you see there's no option to actually do anything else apart from these 4 things. So what you need to do is go back to the property file, jrs.properties. And one thing you need to do is enable this property here to be able to use the file system as your repository. Right. So in this case, I'm just going to call it something like finance or something. This is my first repository. You can, for a file base, you can have multiple repositories. So I'm going to quickly go here and copy these 2. All right, so just to save some time. All right, so I have these 2. I have finance and HR. Now, once you enable these properties, you need to restart the server. So this is where my folders will be created. If they don't exist, it will be created. Otherwise, it will just be there, basically. So I'm just going to save this, enable the property, save it, and I'm going to restart the server quickly. And so this should allow me, when I log into my WebStudio login page now, it will give me 2 options, connect to this folder or connect to this folder. So you can connect to different folders and you can have as many folders as you like. So let's see if the server is starting up right now. All right, so just go back to my slides just to give you a detail of what I've just done. So here in the setting up of the host file system as the repository, what we need to do is be able to uncomment this line and give our name, arbitrary name for our repository, and the location of where you want the folder to be created. If you already have a folder, you can also give the same location, it will pick it up from there. And if you need to create multiple folders or multiple repositories, you just keep adding the arbitrary, just change the arbitrary name, and it should keep creating different folders for it.
And I believe, Mehul, that this would work the same way in a Linux system as well. I mean, you just need to change the path, obviously.
Yeah.
There's no specific configuration for Linux.
Correct. Yeah. So there's no specific configurations for different operating system. It's just the path will be different. So this is a Linux path system. It will pick up the location and just create the folders there if it doesn't exist. So there's nothing special you need to do for Linux. Just one little message. Obviously, the the application is running on 8080 or 8088, which is the public port. So whatever you put in here will be viewable on the WebStudio page. So you just have to be careful to kind of block access from outside if you need to, or make sure you don't just give up your folder to everybody, whoever has access to that. So let's have a refresh of this if it started up. Yeah, server started up. All right, so you can see now when I go to my homepage, I got two more options here. I got the HR folder and I got finance folder. So if I click on HR folder, I'm just going to come back here. You can see there is no folders created here. This is a location I gave, desktop TIBCO reports. Let's come back here. So desktop TIBCO reports finance, right? That's the folder I gave. So it knows it's in here, but as soon as I click on HR, for example, it will create a reports folder and it create an HR folder here. So you can see it's created a reports folder and HR folder. Now I can start creating my reports in this folder if I want to. And just to test out the other one, if I click on finance, it will create the finance report, finance folder. And then I can start creating my reports for finance here if I want to. Correct. So that's the file-based repository. You can set it up. You can set up multiple ones. You just have to be careful that you don't make sure you block the port via firewall so nobody else can access it. And that's about it for the file based as well. But if there's any questions, just let me know. All right, so next one we're going to look at is Google Drive. I think we can move on if there's no questions. All right, so what we're going to do here is, yeah, sorry, better.
Just guys, don't forget you have the Q&A section, and thanks Casey for letting us know in the chat. So guys, don't hesitate to go and ask your questions there. We'll be monitoring it. Yeah, go ahead, Mihal.
Thanks, Better. All right, so we'll this is probably a bit more detailed. So we'll look at how to connect to Google Drive, via the Google authentication, and then obviously use the drive as the repository. Or if you have some reports in the Google Drive and you want to manage them in WebStudio or modify them. So we'll kind of go through how to connect to Google Drive, do the authentication via Google, and then modify the reports. So let's quickly have a look at so what we need to do is go back to our JRS file, JRS the property file. And by default, you can see here, there's two things we need for Google, the client ID and client secret. So what we need to do, just go to the next page here. So there's various options here, right? There are various steps here. If you want to connect to Google, you're going to have a auth application, right? So what you need to do is in your Google Developer Console, we need to configure an auth application. So that will tell Google to allow people to connect to your drive, basically. So to get this information, we need to, sorry, my light just went off. Give me 2 seconds. Sorry. All right. So what we need to do is we need to get client ID and client secret. And to do this, we need to go to this URL. I'm just going to copy this URL and put it on the browser here. Okay, there is a documentation from Google as to how to register your auth application. But in simplest term, what we need to do here is configure the consent for the application and the scope. We need to create some credentials for the secret ID and the key. We need to set the redirect URI so Google can redirect back to our application. And then we also need to enable API so our application can call the Google Drive API. So we'll do these 4 things as we go along. All right, so once you get to this homepage by clicking on this link, the documentation page, what you need to do is click on this configure option here, configure auth consent screen and choose scopes. If I click on that, and then I will click on this blue button here. So this, what we're doing is we're basically connecting to Google to allow, oh, not this one, didn't want this one. All right, so I'm going to go back here. I'm going to copy this URL, open a private tab, go here. All right, so let's try again. Create scope, create consent, go to the consent screen to create our consent. So what you need to do is you need to have a Google account, which will allow you to, obviously, that will be the account that you want to use to connect. So I'm just going to use a test account that I just created. So that's my email address. That's my password. All right, so I've logged into my account. This is the Google Developer Console, and here I'll be configuring the auth application. If you don't have a project, you need to create a project first. So I don't have anything in this account, so I'm just going to create a project. Now this project will allow us to configure our applications once it's done. So let's just call it JRWS, Dr. J JRWS. All right, so what we're doing here is we're doing the first step here in our configuring the auth consent, and then we're going to create credentials after that. All right, so it's once you create the project, it will ask you the user types for those projects. Obviously, because I don't have any internal users, this is a new account and it's not an organizational account. It's a personal account, so I don't have any internal users. So I'll just create an external user. Okay. And then you need to give information about your application. So let's say this is our JRWS application. Support email will be this. Let me just copy this as well. And then the developer contact, which is this one here. So these are the only mandatory things. You just click on save and continue once you put that. And here, the next step here is to assign scopes. We do need the Google Drive scope because we're going to interact with our Google Drive to be able to create folders and files and modify files. So click on add or remove scopes. You can get the default scope from here. If I go back to my homepage, documentation homepage, sorry. Just further down here, there are some different scopes available. So we'll just pick up the drive scope, which we want. I'm just going to give the full drive for now, but you can change it to however you want. Put it into here, click add to table. All right, so my drive scope is added and I've enabled it, and then just click on update. So this allows this application to be able to call APIs on the drive, Google Drive, so that you can create folders and files. So once you've done that, just click on save and continue. And we need to add users. So this allows basically who can log in and who cannot log in. So let's go back to, not this one. Just need the email address again. So this is the person who's going to be able to log in. Okay, click on save and continue.
Mihol, you do have a double G there, double J, Dr. JJ Jaspersoft. I'm not sure if it's normal or you.
Yeah, that's fine. It's Dr. J Jaspersoft. All right, so I've added my users and I've done everything. So my application is now created. I can go back to my dashboard here. Okay, I'm just going to go back to my document and my slides. So what we've done here is we've done this. We've registered our consent and scope. Next thing we're going to do is create credentials. Okay. Now credentials are required, and that's what's going to give us our client ID and client secret. So let's just go to credentials on the left here, and we'll create credentials. When you click on this button, it's asks you different what kind of credential. Is it API key or is it client ID? We need to select the auth client ID. So once you select that, go ahead and choose the web application as your application type, because mine is web, JRS is web, JRWS is a web application. So click on that. You can give your name. I'm just going to keep it client1. And what you need to do is set the redirect URI. So this is going to allow Google to redirect back to our application when the authentication is successful. Right. So in this case, I'm going to go back to my slides here, and this is the redirect URI for Google. For JRWS, this is the default one. So copy that. Go back to my application here, add it here.
Oh, here, Mihol, the localhost 8088 refers to your own instance of JRWS with the port that you have configured.
Correct.
So
yes.
That will be like, yeah, guys, for you, that will be where the host of your JRWS with the port that you have configured it might be anything.
Yeah, yeah. So for you, whatever the URL of the JRWS is or Web Studio is once you installed it. Okay. So I'm just going to add the domain here as well, and then just click on create. All right. So once this is successful, the Google will give us our client ID and client secret. So let's copy the client ID. Go back to your JRWS.property file, and we'll replace it here. Uncomment the line, and then I'll copy the client secret. Replace it here, and uncomment the line. Save the file. All right, so now we have our application Google Client and Client Secret. We should be able to restart application again and be able to see the changes. So I'm just going to shut down the server again and give it a restart again. So while it restarts, let's just quickly go through what we've done. So we're trying to retrieve Google Client ID and Client Secret so our Web Studio can connect to Google Drive and modify or create files or reports on there. We've created our auth application and given consent and scope. We've created the credentials. We've done the redirect URIs. The only thing left now is to enable APIs. Okay, so when we log in to Web Studio, you will see there's a red message coming saying this API is not enabled, so we can enable it then. So let's just wait for my server to restart. Any questions on the Q&A?
So far, so good. No questions so far. Just for time check, Mihul might need to be a little bit more fast. So
yeah, I think I'm nearly done anyway.
And I believe the GitHub implementation is way easier than Google Drive, right?
That's correct. The GitHub is very simple.
Yeah, it's more straightforward.
Yeah. All right, so my server started. I'm going to give it a restart again. This time it should enable my Google Drive button. Yeah, just finishing the startup. There you go, restarted. Sometimes you do have to give it 2 refresh for it to pick up the changes. So now you can see the Google Drive button is enabled. I'm not going to click it here because my Google account on this browser tab is different. So I'm going to go back to my tab here. Okay, and I'm going to go to the Web Studio page here. And then click on login to Google Drive. Okay, so this time it's asking me, when I click on it, it's redirecting to the Google sign-in page and it's asking me which account. Because this tab already has this account, so I'm going to click on this account. And then it's going to give you a warning message. Just click on continue. Right, continue again. So this time it's going to ask you what kind of access you want to give. I'm just going to select everything, but you can select it however you want. All right, so now I've given access to the application. You can see it's redirected back to my application, Web Studio, and is kind of loading my Google Drive. And this is the message I was telling you about, is that you can see that you need to enable the API by going to this URL. It's because we haven't enabled the API. So let's go back and copy this URL, and let's just go to the URL, and you'll be able to enable those APIs. All right, so enable. Okay, API is enabled. Now all the configuration is done. I'll just click on refresh. And I am actually in Google Drive. Now, if I go to my drive here, just keep in mind I'm logged into my Google account, so everything is seamless. Okay, so I have no folders here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly create one folder here. Okay, so I'm going to create a folder called JRS Reports. As soon as I created it, it should reflect in my Google Drive as well. Just going to give it a refresh. There you go, JRS. And if I go into there and I can create a new report. Okay, just save this report. And there you guys created my JRXML file here as well in my drive. So if you have a drive already, it's a good way to connect and use WebStudio to modify the reports. If not, you can obviously create it from Studio as well. So that concludes my Google Drive integration. Any questions so far?
Yeah, I mean, just about Google Drive scopes, because I know, and I've had to deal with that as well. There's a lot of confusion in terms of scopes. What scope should we use for Google APIs so we can add and delete files and things like that? So what we need to make sure that we have in GRW, in our configuration in GRWS, so we can be free or to add files, delete files and everything in our Google Drive?
Yeah, so the configuration for JRWS, there is nothing specific. Is when you're creating your OAuth application, you can give different scopes. So for example, here I gave the drive option, which is this one, and it has manage all files. Okay. Yeah. You can have the read only if you want, or you can have, there's different ones here you can configure. Right?
So all of these scopes are actually managed in the Google Drive itself. There is nothing users needs to do in the GRWS.
No. Yeah. Where there will just connect based on the configuration you've done for your consent.
Great, thank you.
All right, so let's go back to the slides. And so we've done a Google Drive. Next thing we're going to do is get the GitHub. And GitHub also follows the same approach. You need to register your OAuth application, but it's very simple. So there's a link here. I'm going to click on this link. I'm just going to use the same tab here. So because I already have, let us try a new tab. Okay, so I go to this page. Again, this is documentation page to say how to register your OAuth application. So click on register your application. And it's going to ask you for your GitHub details, right? So I'm just going to copy my GitHub details. Okay, so you sign into your GitHub, and then you can create your OAuth application. So let's call this JRWS. The homepage will be the homepage of your application, which for me is just 8080, localhost 8080. And the callback URL will be this one here. So instead of the Google, we have the GitHub. It's also mentioned in the slides. And if you want to enable the device flow, you can do it. Just click on register application. And once it's done, this is going to give you the client ID. So copy the client ID. We'll go back to our property file. And we'll replace the GitHub one this time. Enable. And the next one as well. And we'll take the secret key. So you need to click on this generate new client secret. Okay, this will give you the client secret. So we'll copy that and we'll paste it here. Okay, save the file again. And one more restart. So I'm just going to close this. And restart again. So while it restarts, I'll go back to my slides. All right, so this one is pretty simple. So you register application, giving the redirect URI, and it will give you the client ID and client secret, and you can then just use that in your property file for JRWS and way to go.
In terms of repos, do you have anywhere we can actually specify which repo we're going to use for GRWS? In a GitHub repo we're going to use for GRWS?
Yeah, so we don't have we don't have a way of configuring at the GRWS level. But when we try to log in, it should ask us to kind of give some kind of access based on the repository. At the moment, whatever you see as this user, whichever repository you'll see, will be picked up by JRS.
Yeah. Okay, so it's managed by the user you're actually using to connect to. Okay.
Correct, yeah. All right, so there's a couple more seconds and it should restart. So if I go back to this user, so I have created one repository here called Dr. J because I wanted to demo how to use the existing repository. Actually, for WebStudio, you need to have a repository. There's no way you can create repository from WebStudio, so you have to create it first. So I've created a repository here, and I've also created a report inside as well. Okay, so what I want to do is be able to modify this report, right? So I'm going to come back to my application is started. So let's say if I go to localhost 8088, this time I should see the GitHub button enabled as well. I think it's logged me in because of the Google Drive. Okay, so log into GitHub. All right, so there you go. Is when I click on it, it's redirecting me to GitHub, and because I'm already logged into GitHub, it's asking me, what kind of access you want to give. So here you can say what kind of access is requested, and you just need to authorize the grant, right? Authorize this user. Okay, so now it's redirected back me to WebStudio, and you can see here there's a repository folder that I have in my GitHub. So I can then go into it and go into the folder, go into the report, and modify this report. One thing it does is when you make changes, it will auto commit onto GitHub. So that's one thing you have to be careful. So for example, if I change color, then it will just auto commit onto GitHub. Let's say I change this.
In that auto commit, does it use a standard commit message, or it committed without a message?
I haven't tested that. Probably just uses a standard comment.
Yeah, I believe it will. So far we don't have a way like to customize that message or something, right?
No, I don't think so. So I just did the save. Let's see what it does. Okay. Yeah, so you can see it came with the change, and it just said saving resource at the commit.
Okay, saving resource, yeah.
So I've got two commits now. One added and then saving resource. This is the latest commit I just did. Okay, and I think that's about it. I think we covered everything in terms of the configuration required. These URLs and will be available in the slides, and I bet these slides will be available for you guys to have it as well. So everything it is also documented here. There is a documentation here, this one, which mentions everything about the callback URIs and everything else. So yeah.
Thank you, Mihul, for this rich and detailed presentation. Soon, everybody, all of today's slides and recording will be available on your Dr. Jaspersoft community page and also on YouTube. You have all the links in the resources slide. The new links as well, since we branded our community page, so we have new links now to our customer success orientation community page and others. And I don't think we had any questions, so we're good on that part. There is no question to answer. If you have any other questions related to this session, shoot us an email. As you can see there, drjaspersoft.connect@jaspersoft.com, or send us a question in our community Q&A. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mihul, again, Casey.
Yeah, thanks.
Have a great night.
Great. Thanks, guys.